Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session, we're going to continue with our iZotope Ozone 8 series, and we're going to check out the Spectral Shaper module. So this module is something that I haven't really used very often, if at all, and I'm interested to give it a shot and see what it actually does. It talks about having the ability to use advanced technologies and algorithms, etc., to control problematic frequencies over your entire song or within certain ranges that you can define. Just visually looking at it, it seems to be almost like a compressor or a dynamic EQ in a way, more like sort of like a single band compressor, but works in a particular band, not across your entire song unless you set it that way. But it must be using some technologies in there to pick out the problematic frequencies, because I wouldn't think that it just is compressing across that entire range. But we'll find out when we have a look in depth in it and have a bit of a play with it to see what it actually does to the audio. So let's get into it and see what it does. All right, so I have got the Ozone 8 plugin loaded. As you can see, it's the full version of it, as I have done in previous videos to show the consistent layout of it. We have the Spectral Shaper module loaded. And like with every other module, we can obviously add it, remove it. We can bypass it, enable it. We can solo it. We can load some presets. Or we could move it around if we had multiple modules and we wanted to work out in the chain where we wanted to place it. As you can see, the layout is fairly simple here. We have, frequency range here, and we've got a little band already selected between 2K and 8K. We can solo that if we wish to. And we've got some other controls over here, and you can see it's got some very similar settings to a compressor. We've got an attack, a release, a threshold. So what they state in the manual that this is supposed to do is it's supposed to use some spectral shaping technology to deliver incredibly high resolution attenuation of problematic frequencies across the full spectrum, with configurable time constraints, timbre adjustment, and a variable full spectrum action region. Okay, so the first set of controls here is what they're calling an action region. And this is supposed to determine, I guess, where it is looking for these problematic frequencies. So we could cover the entire spectrum if we wanted to, or we could narrow it down to a specific little region there. So I'll just put it back to default at the moment. We can obviously move either one of these, or we can even move the entire band altogether by grabbing it in the middle. We have a solo button here that is supposed to solo the input to the Spectral Shaper action region. So this solo occurs before the Spectral Shaper processing is applied. So I guess if we want to hear the section before it, then you can hear that. We have 3 modes here that sets the intensity of the reduction applied by the Spectral Shaper. So we've got light, medium, and heavy. So you can see on the pop-ups there, light is basically a ratio of 1.5 to 1, medium 2 to 1, heavy 4 to 1. So hence the reason I said it's just like a compressor. We have a threshold, which we just move down to get it to a point where the audio is going above it. And that is applied to the action region itself, not to the entire song. We have a listen button. So this solos the audio that's being reduced as a result of the spectral shaping processing. So if we want to hear what it's actually doing, what it's actually attenuating, we can click this listen button. So the tone control controls the spectral tilt of the spectral shaping processor. So positive values tilt towards a brighter overall spectral character, and negative values tilt towards a darker overall spectral character. Okay, the attack and release are pretty much the same as what you get on a compressor. So the attack sets the amount of time it takes for the spectral shaper to apply gain reduction after the signal exceeds the threshold. And the release sets the amount of time it takes for the spectral shaper to stop applying gain reduction when the signal falls below the threshold. So exactly the same as a compressor. So this really is a compressor with a few extra controls and the ability to specify a certain range. But I'm assuming that the fact that they keep calling it a spectral shaper, that it's not just, as I'm saying, it's not just compressing this region, it's compressing bits in this region. It's compressing problematic frequencies in this region, not the entire region. We can also go over to mid-side mode, as we've done with the majority of the modules in here, and we can apply this processing on either the mid or the side or both, and we can have different settings. We can link it, we can solo to hear what it's doing, and we can also bypass to hear what it's doing. But we'll check that bit out in a minute. So we've got some meters on here and the threshold input meter, which is going to appear here. So what they state in the manual with this one is like with, say, maximizer or the vintage limiter, this meter here will show you the audio signal for the entire full spectrum. In this module, we are only looking at the highest level of the frequency bands included in this action region. So when we're seeing the audio here, we're not seeing the level of the entire signal. We're just seeing the highest level within this specific range. And obviously we've got this meter here, which is going to show us our waveform as it's playing, and we can set our action region, or we can flick over to this view here where we'll be able to see the actual waveform and a little gain reduction line here to show the gain reduction that's happening within that action region itself. So let's just start off with the default settings here. First off, I'm just going to bypass it, and we've got this song here. And if we turn it on, you can see we're doing nothing because the threshold is so very low. So remember, this is showing this range here. Now, interestingly enough, we're already getting reduction there. So if we want to listen to it, this is what it's doing. So you can see this is what's pulling out as it thinks these are problematic frequencies. I guess they're going to be these little spikes and peaks that are popping up. The more you push the threshold, the greater it's going to be. And then if you change these settings here, so you can hear the big difference that's creating in that range. So obviously I'm going to overdo it again just so we can get an example here. Change the tone. So if we have a look at our reduction here, right, so let's see if we can find something. So I'm just trying to think of things to try. So let's try some low end here. I'm going to narrow that down. And if we solo it, you can see what we hear. You can hear what we're. Right, so that's really is the low end there. So you can see we're really pulling out a lot of low end there. So you had a bit of a boxy sound here you weren't too happy with. So that's what we're pulling out at the moment. And if we run across the whole song, just out of curiosity, now if we reduced our input here, because maybe it's hitting this plugin a little bit hard because this is a mastered song, we're not getting the ability to control it so much. So if you listen to that, it's almost like it's trying to balance the frequencies out and get rid of any spikes. All right, so it's not really giving me the results that I would be wanting to get out of this. Now, that's probably because of the song. I don't have a specific problem that I'm trying to get rid of. We could obviously target mid-side mode, as I said, so we can have a look at that. So if we wanted to target a specific spot within the mid, say it was a bit heavy in this spot, and if we bypass it, so it's just controlling those mids a little bit. Maybe there's something in the sides we want to get rid of. Now it's obviously reducing the guitars there. I'm not sure if it's having as much as an impact as I thought it would in a positive way. Again, it could be because of the source that there's not really a problem to look at, because it's almost like working sort of like what I could do with a multi-band compressor in mid-side mode or stereo mode even. Obviously, it's supposed to be not doing that. It's supposed to be working a lot more intelligently, but is it really giving us that greater difference? Probably not the right example of this. So, you know, like you've got ones here of balanced snare, get rid of nasal frequencies, darken a vox, repair a cheap mic. You know, there's some interesting little examples here. I don't know how they would work. Okay, not really applicable for this song, but that's an example anyway of what you can do with it. Okay, so now I've got the plugin loaded on sort of a drum kit, but it's not an entire drum kit. It's got a lot more snare in it than anything, but it does have kick and that in it. And I've just pulled up the balanced snare, and this is the settings that it has done. So it's actually put it into mid-side mode, and on the mid, it's doing some work between 1K and just below 8K, making it darker and pulling it down with a medium setting. And then on the side, they're going between 2 and 8K, not reducing so much at all, or none at all, if anything, and tone 0. So basically they're leaving it there just in case, but it doesn't seem that it's probably doing much. So let's just have a listen. So this is before. So if if I solo the mids, this is what I get. So if I back that off, so you can hear it's mainly taking that shook sound out. Now, obviously when cymbals come in, that changes it, but so if we just set it to around there, and then the sides, there's not really any side information, as this is a mono track. So we go from this to this. Definitely a darker tone. So if you thought this was a bit bright, you can darken that snare up a little bit. So, not the greatest results that I'm getting out of this. Again, that could be technique. It could be the stuff that I'm working on doesn't really have a problem that needs to be sorted. But it's probably not my most favorite module in the Ozone suite. Probably not something I'm going to jump to very often at all. So there you go. There is the Spectral Shaper module in iZotope Ozone 8. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Do you think it's a worthwhile feature to have in the suite, or is it something you don't feel that you're probably going to ever use or don't see the need of? But love to hear your opinion of what you think about it in the comments. If you have any questions, feel free to ask that as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you get notified of all the upcoming videos that are coming out. And don't forget to check out the previous videos on my iZotope Ozone 8 series and any other videos that I have on the site. Also, feel free to come over to my website and check out the content that I have over there. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.